Crossfire. From the left, James Carville.
People in these mosques in these countries that are praying, that are working, that are good Americans, that pay taxes here, they're not evil people. They're good people.
From the right, Robert Novak.
Attack, attack, attack.
From the left, Paul Begala.
If it was an outrage when Clinton did it, it's an outrage when Bush did it, but that's the thing. To be a Republican today is to believe in hypocrisy.
Today, after more than 2 decades, the left and the right go one last round in the final Crossfire.
There are some things in life you never thought would happen, like knowing the identity of Deep Throat, the Red Sox winning the World Series, and Crossfire coming to an end.
Yes, it's sad but true. It's our very last show. It all started 23 years ago this month with Pat Buchanan and Tom Braden slugging it out. Today we're here to celebrate our years here at the George Washington University and share some of our favorite memories.
And in those 23-plus years, Crossfire has been blessed with some of the most talented and creative people in the business. Producers, writers, researchers, bookers, technicians, camera operators, directors, and even makeup artists who all made us look good. But I personally want to dedicate this show to you, our viewers. The political, the passionate, the partisan, and thank you for watching over the years. And to one viewer in particular, my 91-year-old grandmother, Emma Begala in Pearland, Texas, who never missed a show and always thinks I'm right. Novak, I guess you don't, so why don't you start us off with a few of your favorite memories in the Crossfire?
I think you're far left, not right at all, Paul.
There you go.
One of my great memories was on November 5th, 2002. We were down in Atlanta for the elections. I knew the Republicans were going to win because I do some reporting. And these poor deluded left-wingers, Begala and Carville, were stunned by it. And James, one thing I'll give James credit for, when a lot of people say, well, it wasn't so bad we got beat, he knew the Democrats got a licking. And that's when he put the famous wastebasket on his head in shame. Do we have that? I thought we had.
Tucker, over to you.
I would say bad night for Democrats. James Carville feels the same way.
Well, I'm not saying that I'm embarrassed. I've kind of got my head in the right place here.
Well, I must say, James, I can see why you feel that way.
I've never met this guy. Do you know what I'm talking about? The Republicans will certainly hold the House. I don't know if the Democrats can hold the Senate. And the Democrats now, I think, have form one of our classic Democratic...
You see, the thing is, if they had read the Evans Novak political report, or even listened to what I said at this table, they'd have known it was going to be a horrible night.
They didn't show it, but you actually started interviewing the trash can. And I was talking to you from under the trash can. And, the second time I had to break an egg on my face, too. You know my theory on all of this, and it runs counter to a lot of people. You take what you do seriously, don't take yourself seriously. And, boy, if you can't laugh at yourself or make fun of yourself when you're wrong, then what the hell, why do this stuff?
Well, I enjoy laughing at you. That's the best.
Yeah.
Well, and James, I think that's a good example of Crossfire not being just talking points from the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. It was a terrible night for Democrats. You were candid enough to say that. Bob, you've been at this almost from the very beginning. I think one of your first broadcasts was back in 1985. You and Tom Braden, I guess, were debating with Ed Koch, talking to him about the Bernard Goetz case. Gee, that's a generation ago. Do you remember that show?
I remember it all too well. We got some tape on that?
The point of the matter was that there was an outpouring of people before they knew the facts. Does that disturb you, the sentiment for the shooting?
It would disturb me, yes, that people would be supportive of vigilantism, but there was not vigilantism here. I believe that there are people who are supportive of vigilantism.
Are the subways?
I am not.
Are the subways in New York safe or not?
The fact is that they're quite safe, and what has been reported is vastly overstated.
Bob, 3 presidents have come and gone since that moment, but your hair hasn't changed. What's the deal?
Well, I haven't changed that much, have I? No, I tell you, I'd been on the show for a few years when that was about my 3rd year on the show. But the interesting thing that used to happen on the show, as I was asking him a question, he was answering the question. Did you notice that?
Yeah, that doesn't happen anymore. Everybody has talking points.
Everybody had talking points, but Koch would answer it, and he wouldn't give you what he had to say. Koch was one of the better guest we ever had. He's all upset with me because I'm not an unconditional supporter of Israel, but I thought he was one of our best guests.
What is you alluded to something, Paul, coming into this is, and you know, one of the things that's happened on these shows is it doesn't matter what the question is, everybody comes with their answer. Yeah. And what I figured out was, if it didn't matter what the question is, I just asked any question I wanted, knowing that the answer wasn't there. I wanted there's some kind of a way to get back to being responsive. I think it makes a better TV.
Yeah. You know, what we used to, I think it was Pat Buchanan who said that what we do is we don't ask a question, we tell a question.
Right.
Because you make a little speech in the question. Your first show, you and a guy named Gingrich were on the show as guests. You were a guest on the show. And let's take
see if I look as young as you did.
Let's take a look at that.
Let's talk about Mrs. Clinton's public life. I'll be glad to do that. Mrs. Clinton's on the board of directors of Walmart. She's on the board of directors of this country's best yogurt to sell yogurt. You know, I was in there the other day and I noticed that they put red M&Ms on top of the yogurt. Now, I'm sure that Rich Bond and Newt Gingrich, that means they're going to have Fidel Castro over there. She's a lawyer. She serves on the Children's Defense Fund. She started educational programs in Arkansas. She's been very involved. Look, Mrs. Clinton is exactly what's right about America. It's these clowns in Washington that are sitting there giving... I'm not complaining about anything.
Certainly were.
You know, what I'm tempted to ask you is, you used to have a little hair on the top.
I used to, you believe it or not. My kids don't believe it.
The serious question is, what's the difference between being a guest and a host on this program?
Well, I mean, you know, obviously being a guest, you have less, you're less control, but you're less responsible. I loved being a guest on Crossfire. I don't know how many times I was. I could look it up, but I always thought it was fun. And then we're back when we were over doing the show, and it used to be a lot more compact in this. And you would get in the middle, and you would just sit there. And you could really get a.
And they used to have their camera angles really close to your face.
During the whole Lewinsky thing, I mean, you know, you'd really sort of get in there. And you were sort of next to the guy, and it was like I've done a gazillion different shows I've been a guest on, and
sort of up close and nasty.
Yeah, it was fun though. You know what? If you get into combat, political combat, and you run your mouth like we do, you got to stand in there, and sometimes you got to stand in and take it a little bit. And I always liked the kind of guests that came on this show that did too. Paul, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And if I could jump in, I mean, I think one of the best times I had on the show was covering the 2004 elections. In fact, Novak and I drove around Iowa in a rented car. Didn't even get lost too often. I did the driving. Bob mostly just tried to boss me around from the far right-hand seat, as he often does. But I knew where we were going. And at one point, in fact, we tracked down Senator John Kerry and did a terrific interview with him. And we followed all around. We did a lot of serious coverage, a lot of it in very uncomfortable climates, Bob, sitting out freezing next to rivers in the middle of Iowa in the middle of winter. But one of my more favorite moments is when they came here to Boston, where I am today, and we covered the Democratic National Convention here in Boston, and you guys made a pilgrimage out to Fenway Park, and you wound up, now these are James Carville and Bob Novak, two of the most brilliant men in American political coverage, and you sat there with Wally, the green monster, some rayon stuffed doll from the Boston Red Sox. That was a highlight of your career, wasn't it, Bob?
You know, people say, why would you do something like that? And the answer is they pay me a lot of money. See, that's...
No, let me tell you something. You know what, Bob? We did that with that guy, and they won the first World Series in how many years? Right. I mean, don't tell me we didn't have Crossfire won the show.
Traveling around on that 2004 election, about 2 or 3 times, maybe it was even more, Paul and I went to Mass together, and people would come up and say, how can you guys go to church together? You know, well, I think we actually believe in the same God. Can you imagine that?
I think both of you guys, in your own way, are two of the most devout people I know. I tell you, both of your faith is a beautiful thing. It's actually something to envy, that both of you are very committed Catholics. And I don't have any problem at all seeing the two of you going to Mass together, but y'all probably came out to church fighting too.
That's right. One of the mysteries of the Holy Spirit, I'm sure. One of my favorite moments covering that campaign, I always loved the debates, and when I was a political consultant, I loved doing the preparation sessions for the candidates, and then when I was able to cover them, man, was that fun. And I got a little carried away at the presidential debate at Washington University in St. Louis. And it's one of the few things I've ever done on TV that my kids actually noticed and thought was cool. The crowd was so exuberant, young people there, and they were cheering. And so I decided to do a little crowd surfing.
Go, who's going to do crowd surfing here? Ready?
Thank you.
All right. From the left, I am Paul McGowan. That's it for Crossfire.
Now that was fun. By the way, you know, some of those women were pretty aggressive with Greg. Maybe they were going for the wallet. What do you think, James? I think at a man my age, that's probably all they'd be interested in.
Yeah,
well, I tell you, they didn't let me do that. I broke my hip during those debates, and I blame it on George W. Bush.
Right. Well, it's Alan Keyes, but he went in a mosh pit or something like that in the Iowa caucuses back in, I think it was 2000. Well, we've had some strange guests over the years. When we come back, some of our most unusual, including one who just couldn't take his eyes off of Bob.
Welcome back to Crossfire and our very last show. Let's go back to Paul Begala in Boston.
Bob, you know, we've been showing some fun clips of some of the fun times we've had crowd surfing and visiting Fenway Park. But I think the topic we probably debated more than any other over the last 3 years was America's decision to go to war in Iraq. And I'm really proud that Crossfire was one of the places you could turn to, one of the few, frankly, in the mainstream media that greeted the march to war with some real skepticism. If I may say, 3 of our 4 hosts, both of the 2 on the left, and you, Bob, had deep reservations about the war and publicly said so on this program. I think tragically many of the reservations we expressed were true, but I'm proud of the fact that Crossfire showed both sides and put tough questions to both sides when America was making the toughest decision it can make.
And I think of the so-called experts, whether they're experts or not, we don't know, but they did give their chance on this program to say what they thought, and under tough questioning too.
Right, they did, and I'd also add that Tucker was reluctantly for the war, and since very quickly thereafter said that he regretted his decision. But you know, one of the things that Paul makes a point, Bob, and tells us this: no one ever told us what to say. No one from CNN ever called anybody on this show and said, you know, you shouldn't do this or you should do that, or anything like that. And so what you saw as a viewer here was really what we thought. And I'm very sort of proud of that. And we are all passionate partisans. And we all, what you saw us saying, we might have said it in a heated way. We might have been, sometimes we might have gone a little over the top. But at the core, we thought at the time that we were saying it. And it was not scripted. We didn't go over anything. In fact, we never much liked to say how deep we were going to go into the questions, but most of the questions that you heard, we like to come up with on the spot.
I think we did more shows on Iraq than any other subject.
I know I have to have done more on Iraq, yeah. And there was more skepticism expressed about this war in the lead-up on this show than I'm sure any other show on television.
Amen. Well said. Well, if I can move to a slightly lighter topic, Bob, you've always been a great critic of government pork. I frankly am pretty pro-pork. I like government spending, but I will never forget the program. It was not a very serious one. We were not talking about life and death, and it was nice once in a while to do the lighter stuff. Somehow you got Punxsutawney Phil, the Pennsylvania groundhog, to come on Crossfire. You remember that day?
That's actually one of our better-looking guests.
I'll tell you, there's really something that's kind of where your journalistic career and your hopes and dreams end up looking at interviewing a groundhog. And I remember when I was a young guy, I watched the Today Show, Dave Garroway, and he used to be on with a monkey. And I said, how can a serious grown-up man go on with a monkey? Well, I did him one better and went on with a groundhog.
See, a lot of you guys think this guy's a jerk, but here's the only guy on television to ever interview a trash can and a groundhog on the same TV show. When we come back, our favorite clip of all time and a special guest. Welcome back to our final Crossfire. Now here, we at Crossfire don't agree on much, but we do agree that our favorite clip of all time. It happened 2 years ago when former host Tucker Carlson said he would eat his shoe if Senator Hillary Clinton sold more than 1 million copies of her memoirs. Well, Senator Clinton did sell more than 1 million copies, and here's what happened.
Tucker, you're going to have to eat some shoe leather, brother.
You know, Paul, it wouldn't be the first time I've had to eat my words.
Oh, my God!
Senator Hillary Rodham Clinton. Hello,
thank you very much.
Yeah, very welcome. Well, Mrs. Clinton, thank you. Well, I'll be. You know,
I really want you to notice, Tucker, that this is a wingtip. It's a right wing tip. And do something a little.
Well, you are awfully gracious. I appreciate that.
So much.
Thank you, Ben. Would you like to do the honors?
Ladies and gentlemen, we don't have Senator Clinton, but we do have Tucker Carlson. Let's give Tucker a big hand.
Thank you. Gentlemen. Bob, how you doing? You guys look great.
Welcome back.
Tucker's got a new show coming up on MSNBC.
Yes, I do. Next week.
Next week.
But I got some
what do you
free time
remember
till then.
about that? Was that a scripted moment?
That was entirely, like many on this show, and that's not bragging. It was completely unscripted. She's a lot less frightening in person.
Really? Maybe that's why she has a 67% reelection.
That's why I keep away from
It all comes back. I've been here 30 seconds. And
I want to Tucker, you're our guest. I want you to respond, and Bob and Paul. I want to pose a question. Crossfire, this is the last Crossfire. We saw a universal, almost editorial praise of the deal by the moderates in the Senate to end the filibuster. Are we seeing? Do you think we're seeing the end of the passionate partisan? Is this kind of an anachronism in American politics? Is any place left? I'm serious. No, it's a serious thing here.
I think we're seeing the end of the passionate ideologue. I think we're seeing the end of politicians who stand for distinct ideas. I was driving through Maryland last night, and there's a huge billboard in Maryland that says "Click it or ticket." I'm thinking they've got a Republican governor, and they have more aggressive seatbelt laws than they had under a Democratic governor. It's more a police state, in other words, under a Republican governor. What does it mean to be a Republican or a Democrat now?
I don't agree with you, Tucker. I think that the people who really are involved, who meet in meetings and give money, they still are ideologues. I hope so. I think the country is down the middle. I think the Carvilles and the Novaks are going to be fighting each other, and it's a good thing for the country. I don't like too much agreement with people.
I know, but we know that.
Hear him applaud.
If I can jump in here, Novak's point, frankly, is one that echoes the Founding Fathers. I guess, Bob, you were there covering the Constitutional Convention.
True, right?
That's what they wanted, you know. I make no apologies. I know there are people in the sort of editorialist pontificatus maximus who don't like passion and partisanship. When somebody says that you're passionate or partisan or ideological, to me that's another way of saying that you're principled. You actually believe in something. And so, no, James, I don't think the era of passion in politics is over at all.
Tucker, do you have a special memory from Crossfire?
I have many special memories from Crossfire, Bob. One of my all-time favorites, though, was an interview we did with a polygamist. It had everything. It had, sex mostly. Tom Green, I think his name was. And the arrangement was he could only bring one wife.
All right, let's take a look at how that came out on the clip.
I think the question is not is the wife making a serious commitment to the husband, but is the husband making a serious commitment to the wife? Now, if Tom Green, your husband, is 52 or 53 years old at this point, and some of his wives are in their 20s, it stands to reason that your husband will be long gone by the time you are still young and vigorous and your children are small. That doesn't strike me as much of a commitment to your long-term care.
It really bothers me that Tom's the one being prosecuted, because we see ourselves as a married couple.
Was that one of the great moments of your life?
Well, he brought all his wives.
Yeah.
And you didn't play the clip, but they landed on me as a group. You make Tom Green's wives mad, they come at you as a team. It's kind of cool.
But you have stuck with one wife, haven't you?
I've stuck with a one-wife guy.
But I wouldn't attack anybody's wife, even if he's got three, you know what I mean?
Especially if he's got
I wouldn't attack a guy that had like 20-year-old wives.
No,
he might know something we don't know.
We definitely know something.
I don't know. This guy might, Something to be said. Paul, you're not supposed to be laughing at that. Diana will smack
I think you foaming at the mouth and losing control and pounding the table and using, unutterable words on the show, that was my other favorite moment.
That was the other thing.
Yeah, I love that.
Unutterable.
Tucker, thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob.
Good luck on your MSNBC show.
I can't wait.
Hope it's very good. Thank you. No, you're my co-host.
I had good reason.
When we come back, James, Paul, and I will say goodbye.
Before we go, a big thank you to the George Washington University. They have been great hosts over the years. And this may be the end of Crossfire as you know it, but we're not going anywhere. Bob, Paul, and I will continue to give you the best political insight anywhere. Beginning Monday, you can catch us on Inside Politics every day. And later this summer, join us for a brand new political program anchored by Wolf Blitzer. We'll all be part of it. It's going to be a great show. But for now, it's just time to say goodbye. And for the last time, from the left, I'm James Carville.
And with a final thank you to all the people who work behind the scenes on this program, from the left, I am Paul Begala.
And thanks for 23 years fighting with people like Tom Braden, Michael Kinsley, and it's been great. From the right, I'm Robert Novak. That's it for Crossfire!